Is that what you mean? Like you have already exchanged each other's details like that, and then bang, you're now feeling like, oh, okay.
No, it was there was spyware on devices.
Oh, it's not even something as simple as Instagram password. Spyware.
Yeah.
Oh wow, did that happen to you, or was just a general?
That's when I went to the police when I found it.
And how did the police react to that? Met Police told rape victim not to call unless she was dying or having her legs unbroken. What happened? Explain that to me. What happened?
Yeah, so, basically, those were the words said to me by the investigating detective on the case, where I reported the assault in November 2020, and from the moment I reported it, there were two assailants. One was not known to me, and one was somebody who I thought was a friend. And the moment I reported it, within 24 hours, this person took to social media and started smearing me, spreading rumors about me, telling people that I was dangerous, that they had to avoid me, stop speaking to me, that I'd made up all kinds of lies.
Is that why the word fantasist was thrown in? Because I think I saw that when I saw this on your Twitter. I wasn't sure what that was referring to.
What word?
Fantasist. Like yeah, that's what they called you. I did not see this person's post, by the way. So I'm in the dark with this. What did they actually say?
They repeatedly call me a fantasist.
Oh, it's just making things up. No, this actually happened. Was it you said there was two assailants. Was it like, did it happen with these two people at the same time? Like,
yes.
Okay. You called the police straight away. What was the help and support that you received from the police? Like, what actually happened when you called it? As it happened, well, not as it happened, but after it happened.
Initially, the call, a friend made the call, sitting beside me, because I think I was in a state of shock. I wasn't really speaking. So when the police arrived, there were two officers who arrived. I think I was not very responsive in the beginning when they first started asking me questions. It took a while, and then they had called an ambulance because I had bruising on my throat, so they wanted me to be checked over, so an ambulance also arrived. They were all incredibly supportive. The people who arrived and were present to the initial call were very supportive, quite respectful. So, yeah. And the two officers were with me for, I don't know, maybe 12 hours, because they took me to A&E, and a consultant had to look me over and see if I had any injuries and things like that. I had just come out of treatment for breast cancer, so they were quite concerned about my vulnerability and what damage could have been done. And then from there, the police officers, that I live in North London, so the response team were a North London team, but the incident that happened was in South London. So once I was finished in the hospital, they drove me to South London to a forensic unit that they have, where then two police doctors took over and examined me again and photographed me and took swabs and gave me PrEP, which is medication to try and prevent contracting AIDS and hepatitis injections, and prescribed various medications for me to take when I got home to try and prevent me from having any serious STIs as a result of it.
Walk me through a bit, try and describe your friend coming over to like try and help you and like piece together like how did that happen? Like
well, I had got home and I was very upset. And my initial thought and initial plan was, I'm going to have a shower and I'm going to get into bed and I'm going to hide under my duvet all day and it will go away. It will be. Then I called a friend, because then I realised as I was getting into the shower, actually I should not be having a shower. That's the last thing I should be doing. So I stepped right back out again. And so then I kind of sat crying for a while, and then I called a friend and said I felt too scared to be on my own, but I couldn't verbalise why, and said that something had happened. And I think there were two friends that I called, and they both immediately understood what had happened. And then they called an Uber, and I went over to one of their homes so that I wouldn't be on my own, and then gradually talked it through, and they called the police. Yeah.
It sounds like you have an amazing support network right there. That's amazing. And
reported the rape to the police, and they began the investigation. There were two assailants. One of the assailants I had never met before in my life. They were the same as somebody who I thought was a friend. That person then, just 24 hours, started speaking about me on social media and accusing me of all kinds of things, and started smearing me and spreading all kinds of rumours about me. And I kept contacting the police about it and saying that this person is saying all of these things about me, and the police just did nothing about it.
Mm-hmm.
Or they would say, well, you have any proof that it's speaking about you? Because they could be speaking about someone which sort of begged the question, if this is something that could apply to me but they are saying it about someone else, then should you not be questioning how many other people they may have done this to? If they have the ability to speak about certain things and certain details, should you be worrying and investigating this person further? But they just did not see it like that. They just kept on telling me to leave them to do their job, but then they wouldn't look at social media. They wouldn't have time. So this months and months carried on. They started speaking to people that I knew. We knew lots of people in common. Stopped speaking to me because of what they were saying. They started making threats on social media, went to the police, and then eventually, this is maybe 6 months into the investigation, one evening, I was actually getting into bed and the phone rang, and it was the detective. And he was just shouting at me, and he said, because I'd sent an email with a screenshot, and he said, you need to give up on this. Just, you can't keep on telling me that this person is harming you, or this person is upsetting you or scaring you, because why should they be? Because they're saying something on social media. Unless they come to your house, don't contact me. And then he stopped and he said, well, no, not just if they come to your house. Unless they are physically holding you and breaking your arms and limbs, don't contact me and tell me you're scared of them or that they're doing something to you. Whereas to me, it was like, well, this person has already done the harm. They've already done something incredibly violent. So why am I having to wait for them to do something violent to me again for you to...
Sorry that you went through that, because that is extremely harrowing to hear that you not only did you go through this, you're trying to get help, and on top of trying to get help, the people that are set up to try and help you are turning around to say, don't contact. Forget the reasons, just they're saying don't contact. And that's where my mind blanked, if I'm being honest with you. After don't contact, I almost didn't hear anything else after that. It was just white. You know, that little signal, like sound that comes in your ear. Yeah. How did that feel to hear do not contact unless?
Similar response to what you said, just everything just stopped. And simultaneously, it was like there was a lot of noise around me, and I felt like there was no noise around me. were frozen in this little space where I felt like I couldn't move, I couldn't say anything, I couldn't do anything. He said to me that if I carried on down, constantly telling him what things were going to, what happened, he would arrest me for getting in the way of the investigation. So I just felt like I had nowhere to go.
Going back to the event a little bit, did you tell anyone about this at the time? I believe this happened in 2020, right? Did you tell anyone else before you came out and told the Mirror? Like, did you?
Well, I reported it to the police straight away.
Oh, wow, you even done well. Okay, so you reported to the police.
Yes, straight away. And I was taken to what they call the Haven, which is a forensic unit that the police have, where they have police doctors take photos of your entire body, and they take swabs, samples, so give you like preventative medication for AIDS and hepatitis shots and all those things, to try and prevent you from catching anything from your assailant. So that all happened in the first 24 hours.
Okay. And this, in a couple of days, or when you're trying to sort this out, that's when you heard the person say that to you, like, don't contact me unless... It was literally in a matter of... Was it weeks? Was it months? Or was it just...
Months later.
Months later. Oh, okay. That was months later. Damn. How many months would you say? Like a month, 2, 3...
5 or 6 months.
5 or 6
probably.
months.
But that wasn't... that was... There were many other things that were said running up the only conversation we had.
Yeah.
I had spoken to the detective many times, and he was quite disparate and minimized everything each time I spoke to him. So the Casey report was done by Baroness Casey, who spent just over a year investigating the Met Police Force, and result was the report declared the Met Police Force was institutionally racist, institutionally homophobic, institutionally misogynistic, which obviously means it is through the entire Met Police Force. It's in every single aspect of the police force. It's in their culture. So if it's institutionally, it's at every level. That is something,
I spoke to Mas Idris about this, and he linked me to an article that actually, literally this year, like I think it's literally July, about how there's 1,000 SA complaints, like against Met police officers.
They cover up for each other. They look after each other. They know what's happening when other officers are being reported. You've now seen with people like Wings, there were reports about each of these officers many times that were brushed aside and never investigated, never fully dealt with.
Yeah,
and then they went in to do the most awful, horrendous things.
I still can't get over how they got the rape kit samples mixed in with their Lunchables or whatever, and it just destroyed evidence just like that. So when you do try and get help and you do provide the evidence for them to actually do something with it, they just botch it up like that. What was the time frame between this and the incident?
It was probably 5-6 months, but there had been a huge build-up until that moment. So, as I said earlier, this person had taken to social media within the first 24 hours. As I had stated before, they were meant to be a friend. They didn't once contact me to ask what was happening. They didn't contact me to ask if I was okay. they immediately started tweeting about how I was a liar and a fantasist and telling people to stay away from me, and that just increased for 6 months. Many people stopped speaking to me.
Yeah, I
They
can
would regularly tweet things about how it was a good thing that there were gun laws in this country, because if there weren't any gun laws, they would make sure that B was seen to. And so to me, that's a threat, and that is terrifying. And so I would go to the police whenever I heard about this or saw something like that. They just weren't interested. They kept on saying, well, they didn't understand why it was a threat. I'm not sure how anybody should be able to say something like that in this country, where we do have gun laws, and saying you want to shoot somebody should be something that's investigated. But they kept questioning me and saying, well, how do you know that they're speaking about you? They could be speaking about somebody else.
That's even worse. That's even worse.
Yeah.
Why are you even justifying it? That's what I'm thinking in my head. It just sounds a lot more like, it just sounds more of, don't call me until something has happened to you, which doesn't make sense, because you're supposed to protect the citizens. If you're hearing a threat, irrespective of if it's me, you, or grandma,
yeah,
get in that car and come down and take
speak to this person who had clearly said it in public to the whole world.
Yes.
And to me, this whole thing of, again, when they said that it might be about somebody else, surely as the police, you should be concerned that this person is saying this about anybody, let alone if they're saying things about me and then another person and another person. Surely you need to investigate why this person is threatening so many people. And also the very fact that this person has already done something incredibly violent to me. This person has already harmed me.
Yeah.
In like a devastating way. So to then question why I would be frightened or I would be concerned when I hear that they've said things like this makes no sense whatsoever. Especially when we know, factually, statistically, all the research shows that when people commit these crimes and they get away with them and are not held accountable, the likelihood of at some stage it becoming fatal.
You went through IPV as well. What was the IPV situation, what was going on in that relationship, if you don't mind talking about it?
Well, it was a marriage. I'd been with this person for a very long time, have children. I didn't quite understand what was happening. So when it all ended, I was really confused. They had told me that I had done many, many things wrong. And I was genuinely confused. I couldn't understand when there was a situation where I knew there were many things they had done, but how I had ended up being the one who had done things that were wrong, and constantly being told, well, if I had behaved in a particular way, they wouldn't have been forced to have behaved in the way they had behaved. My mind was blown. I sort of went through several months where I was just really piecing it together and I couldn't understand. And I started reading a lot about it. I started therapy with a domestic violence charity. And actually one of the things I did, I forget that I did this because I haven't told many people, but I spent weeks. I went right back to the beginning of the relationship. I've got a really bizarre memory. I went to the beginning of the relationship and I charted everything that had happened in the entire time we've been together. So sort of financial situations that had happened, physical situations that had happened, how I had felt in that period of time, what I had been told I was doing in that time. And then I could see a clear cycle of where there was like love bombing and then devaluation and then silence and withholding things. And then suddenly, just as I would, and then I remembered there were years where I had begun to think, I think I need to leave. And I couldn't explain why, just something in my gut. And I would get these moments where I'd feel really absolutely desperate, like I'm going to grab the kids and I'm going to leave. But I remember questioning myself and going, and it's those famous words, but he doesn't beat me. He hasn't, done something physical to me. And when I spoke to friends and people that I knew, if I even suggested that he had done something, people would be like, oh, come on, you're being judgmental, you're expecting too much.
Reading into it too much.
Yeah, your expectations are too high. But then what happens with a lot of abusers they can be incredibly charming. And when they're very charming, they convince everybody else that they are somebody else. I mean, that's the very way you get caught up in a relationship like that. I would, they were, because they had been a friend of mine from many years prior.
Looking back, and don't look back 2020 wise or hindsight wise, put yourself in that moment. What was that first thing that made you think something is off in the matrix or the ether, or something is just not right, something is really off in this? Like, what was that first moment?
So initially there was a love bombing phase, which, as you've mentioned earlier, I brushed across. So it was, this person appeared to be completely besotted with me. As I said, we had been friends for many years prior. So it wasn't, if they had been a stranger, that I think would have made me sort of sit back a bit and think, oh, how could this person feel all these things so instantly? So it didn't feel creepy or anything because I had known this person. But yeah, I suppose there were inconsistencies in things that they told me, and in hindsight, but also at the time, I think when people always insist that the person they were with prior to them treated them really badly and had abused them or is still doing something to them, but when they say that about various people, then there is something to be concerned about them, So there is, like how you mentioned, if you have been in an abusive relationship, that does increase your likelihood of it happening again. But then at the same time, these people understand this dynamic, so they are also capable of playing to that role and saying, well, people take advantage of me, my good heart, and they can spin you a story. And when I think about it, the people they spun a story about were people who were no longer in their life at all. So there was no way of corroborating their stories.
Yeah, so exactly. Like, and when you look at that, I always look at it like, if this person is not even recounting one good moment, talking to me and saying, but it's always bad, always bad, always bad, that's a red flag for me, because it's like, you want me to get back into that moment so that I can wish, and you know what I mean? Like, it's like I didn't know that until like way later, but I've always had it in my head, like, that's not good. That doesn't sound logical, that it's all bad, or the relationship has always been bad. Like, to me, that's a massive red flag. If they cannot speak one good, I mean, there are bad exes, don't get me wrong, but come on, like, it can't be that. Yeah, so like, do you think coercive control is something that is understood in society, like, when we talk about it, like, just in general?
No, I don't think so. I mean, I think, as we've only seen in the press and social media just the past week, things like the WhatsApp messages that were shared by
Jonah Hill? Oh, gosh.
Yeah. And so many people have come forward saying, yeah, but that's not abuse, that's somebody expressing boundaries. And immediately that shows you that we have, as a society, such little understanding about what abuse is and what boundaries are. Even boundaries are about your feelings and yourself. You can't set boundaries about somebody else's physicality or their behavior. You can say, I cannot accept this kind of behavior, and I'm out because I have an issue with it. But you can't say, I have an issue with it, so you must stop it because that's my boundary. That just it just beggars belief. But the fact that even something like that shows you just the response from people, and then all the think pieces and the press articles and everything about was it, is it, it shows you that people don't understand, because that's how it begins. Because with personalities like that, it's small things. They erase your own boundaries. They change what your expectations are and what you think is acceptable and what is normal, and they almost rewire your brain. I mean, coercive control is essentially emotional terrorism. That's what it is. These people are, through repeated behaviors, rewiring the way you think about everything and yourself.
Oh, you are 100% correct, because when there is a massive difference, and I always defer to this, there is a massive difference in saying, hey, it does bother me that you are hanging around with this person because they are very antsy on you, this and that. They are very antsy on you, so maybe you should limit that. Otherwise, it's causing a lot of insecurity in me, and I don't think, like. Would that be a reasonable boundary? Because relationships do bring insecurities out of people.
Yeah.
And I guess it's how you try to manage it. Is trying to talk to your partner about them, is like, what would make this situation more of control than a boundary? Because it is, yes, you are telling them who they can be friends with. Yeah. That's true. But it's not focused on, as you put it, when you were, describing boundary, you were saying that it's, and correct me if I'm wrong by saying this, you were saying that it's their actions, and not their own actions. But if it's focused on the friend's actions, rather than their actions, it's like, okay, look, this friend is a bit too friendly, maybe, mitigate that a little bit. Do you know what I'm trying to say? Would that be seen as control or establishing an healthy boundary?
I think that would it would be a few things, but it would be probably having poor emotional understanding of your own, the things that are going on. But that's, not necessarily in a bad way to say, like being emotionally immature or something like that, but it's, we all have our own hurts and our own history and things that are there consciously and subconsciously. And sometimes when we have those situations where in a relationship we feel jealousy or we feel insecure, that's something in our past that is coming up. It's a hurt from something that's
absolutely.
That's painful. And so because it's painful, we usually look for something outside of ourselves to blame or to fix it. Whereas really, we're not fixing it by doing that, because the next time it happens, we get that emotion again, and then we do it again. Whereas if we were actually to sit with it and work through that, and in a relationship, communication is key. Speak to the person you're with, say to them, when this happens, I feel insecure, I feel jealous, this is something I need to work on, but I need you to know.
Yeah.
So then by saying that to them, you are allowing them as an adult themselves to then take responsibility over what they do.
Okay. So it's about, from what I'm understanding, it's more about communicating without removing one's agency.
Yes.
In the process. Understood. So, okay, let me throw a little bit of a curveball in this. Let me throw a little bit of a curveball in this. Sarah Brady posted more. Sarah Brady posted a bit more. And we saw that what she was posting initially was actually a list that was her idea to create. So they came up with a list of what they want and don't want. I don't want to use that word because they never use it. They never said what the list actually was. Well, she never said what the list actually was in the messages, but there was a list, his and hers. I want to say wants and needs, do's and don'ts. I don't know what it was, but we are here. So his list was shown, and that was her reaction to his list. What in the conversation in regards to control, coercive control, etc. How would this situation filter through that?
I don't think this is a both sides thing.
Okay.
That's sort of something that, again, as a society, we need to understand that. One of the terms people we respond with, they were both abusive. That's not. Usually when there's abuse, there's an abuser and there's a person who may be reacting to the abuse. So there may be behaviors that seem unhealthy in their reactions, but they are reacting to many, many things that we have not seen. So this is what used to happen with my ex-husband. There were many things behind closed doors people didn't see, many things said, many things done. But then if we were in a public situation, he may say something that would just ignite that little thing that had been building up for ages, where I would then stand up for myself. And everyone would leave going, she was a bit harsh, and she was a bit mean to him, but they didn't understand what it meant.
I believe the article said that she was in the room when the detective was saying a lot of the things to you that you described as he was flippant. When that was going on in that moment, what was the support that you received? Was it adequate? Was it good? From, what was it like?
Yeah. Obviously she did not have the authority to override this officer, or detective constable, I think it was. So she didn't have, the levels of it is just, but she does not have the authority to override them, but she did ask questions to try and hold them to account. But at moments where I was sort of dumbfounded or too upset to speak because I was shocked by things he was saying. This detective constable at one stage said, you can't be surprised by the way we're behaving because most people who walk through our station are liars. Most people who come and report to us.
Pause. Brakes. Handbrake. Let's put a handbrake on this one. Not even a brake. Let's put a handbrake on this one. How did they ascertain that they were liars? Okay. Most people that's
which to me, obviously, it makes sense why so few cases
make it to court. Yeah, actually.
Investigating officers have that
bias.
Investigations with that as the overriding feeling.
What should people do in this situation? Should they go to the police or should they go to charities?
Both. I have said in the past in previous interviews, and my mind is not made up on this. It changes quite frequently. There are times where I have wished I did not go to them. There are times where I have thought nobody should go to them because they're not going to help you and they re-traumatize you.
Absolutely.
But at the same time, if we have this system in place and we have the police there and we want them to reform, we need to make them do what they should be doing. So I think, I don't know what the correct answer is, but I would say yes, report it, because having a log of it is still incredibly important, even if they don't.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So probably, be wise to the fact that you should also contact somebody else. You should get in touch with Women's Aid, Solace Women's Aid, various different DV groups or violence against women groups, charities, and try to access those so that they can support you, because they are aware of how the system works and they're aware of how traumatic it can be, and they can guide you and they can provide counselling and all the things that you really need. You need to kind of almost armour up.
We have seen activism a lot for violence against women. Maybe now we're starting to see activism for violence against men. In your experience of dealing with just women, have you ever had a report like where someone came in and actually said, yeah, I was actually being violent? Maybe, has that ever happened in your experience?
Well, where a woman has admitted it?
Yes. In your experience of speaking to them, never happened.
No one's come to me and said but I don't think people who are doing that would ever admit to it. This was actually something that came up in that conversation with the detective constable when we complained about the investigating detective, where he said to me about my assailants, will they deny that they did this to you? And I asked him, so are you telling me that with all your other cases, they sit down and they admit to you that they did do it? And he actually, there was no response on his face. He didn't even know how to answer it. It was surreal.
So after all of that, you came forward in January, then March with the Mirror. I was surprised that not a lot of charities has actually picked up on the story and really amplified it. And why do you think that is? Like the sort of silence on it.
To be honest, I feel like the survivors, whistleblowers, whatever you want to call them, who get amplified and listened to the most are white. Those of us who come from marginalised backgrounds don't fit the story. They don't garner as much sympathy. I think, if I looked a particular way, came from a particular background, I probably, would have suddenly found myself on various different panels and things, chatting away.
So in your case, you acted really fast. Like that was I thought it would take a bit of a while for you, but you were like, bang, no, I want something done ASAP. But you have the opposite as well, where someone in your position might be like, actually, I don't want to go to. I feel too much shame. I think you brought that in. So in terms of control. So what is the dynamic like? Have you seen that kind of dynamic play out?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Well, I mean, with my ex-husband, I never reported anything until after the fact. You get to a situation where you are scared to leave the house, when you are worried about where you're going, when somebody's monitoring you, when they're tapping your laptop and your phone. That's escalation. Yeah. That's
weird. Is that what you mean? Like you have already exchanged each other's details like that, and then bang, you're now feeling like, oh, okay.
No, it was there was spyware on devices.
Oh, it's not even something as simple as Instagram password. Spyware?
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Did that happen to you? Or was just a general...
That's when I went to the police, when I found it.
And how did the police react to that?
Again, the officers who first came to my home, there were several visits to my home. The first time the officer who came was very supportive, recognised the signs completely, instantly, took a lot of time with me. Somebody else was, then another team was sent out and they checked the locks and the windows in the house and asked about my route to dropping kids to school and all these things. They were really supportive. Again, when it got to detective level, it changed.
Yeah.
And the moment they met him and they interviewed him, they just completely changed in tune and their treatment of me, because suddenly there's this man suited and booted, very polite, very charming. There's no way he could have possibly done anything wrong. I must be just very angry about the breakup, and I'm making things up to punish him.
I sympathize a lot with that situation, because it's like, it's like a catch-22 really. When you look at it, because you have the police coming in and they see this mask, in front of them, and then you have and you're like, I've got this. This is the spyware. Please look into this. Like, this is but they can't stop looking at it. It's like Medusa's mask, They can't stop looking at that mask. It's like, no, here. So when you're seeing that happen, and if someone is in that dynamic, right, what can one do in that situation to present their story and not come across, or not even be seen as they're making up something, if that makes sense?
I think whether you're a woman, a man, I think log everything, keep, reference numbers, names, everything, just log everything, and reach out to support groups as quickly as you can, because that's where you sort of regain some form of power and you get the support you need, because they will help you, whether it's with the police or if there's legal stuff going on, they will help you with your safety. They will be able to reach out to even things like getting therapy, which is really important.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, because even if you were in a situation where you were safe enough to leave, because we also have to remember sometimes leaving is not safe. It can become incredibly dangerous. It can become fatal if you leave. So if you are in the position where you are able to safely leave, then it's not finished. There's the damage that has been done is something that you must take a long time to repair, to undo. And getting that support is really, really important.
I'm thank you so much for sharing your experience with me. I really do appreciate that. That sounds like an insane. I mean, it's just the spyware alone. I did not expect that. Like, how did that? Like, did you know? Like, did he tell you beforehand? And you just gone into your laptop and just done it? Like, I'm guessing laptop, right? Yeah. Like, oh my.
No. So the laptop was connected to the mainframe of his workplace, so that he could work when he was at home and do his work stuff, and it could immediately transfer to work.
And because of that,
I was completely oblivious or naive to the fact that it meant that when he was at work, he could also access the laptop from work. I just thought it was all like he could send things back and forth, and if then he can upload it. And I didn't realise that he could actually, so if I was sitting at home and I was writing an email, he could open his computer there and he could watch what I was doing live while it was happening.
I appreciate you for saying that with me. How can people find you? And, do you have any way that you communicate with people, like that you share your message with people? How do people connect with you?
I mean, Twitter and Instagram, I'm on those, and my DMs are completely open.
Okay.
So people can contact me and speak to me, and I do answer messages.
Okay, perfect. When you
I block them.
when you slide in there, slide responsibly. Gosh, Gosh, none of this incel vibes, please. Please, I don't want to be responsible for, hey, after your show, I've had many people sliding into, I'm like, no, please. Nothing to do. But yeah, thank you so much for sitting down with me and talking about this difficult subject. I really appreciate you sharing everything that you did. Thank you so much.
Thank you.